Okay, participants are coming into, one by one. It's almost 50, 40, 50. So, um, can you hear me, Dr.
Yes,
Sai?
yes.
Okay, now at least we can communicate with each other under this extraordinary situation. And as again, thank you everyone for joining us in this first webinar or seminar, online seminar on this is the first attempt of the four series of four seminars, and this is the first one, a new great game for the Red Sea and the Horn of Africa. In the coming 2 months, we are planning to hold entirely four seminars, and this is the first one. And the second one is about the East Mediterranean strategic rivalry, and the third one is about the Sub-Sahara and the Sahel regions
يعني
security.
انت بتعملي بالسعودي ثابت
And four,
سعودي
the
ما هو
last
ثابت
one would be superpower rivalry in the cyber
لا ما تعمليش
and
قلنا دلوقتي
security.
انا اعمل ايه ماشي استنى
Yeah. Um, okay, so and this seminar series is co-organized by RCAST and the Rhodes RCAST Open Laboratory for Emergence Strategies and IGSD, Institute of Global Security and Defense Studies in Abu Dhabi, all headed by Dr. Said Ghoneim. And today, this is the first one, a new great game for the Red Sea and the Horn of Africa. And we start with, but aside from this topic, we start with the new issue emerging in the Gulf area. And the so first of all, we ask Dr. Said Ghoneim on his short presentation about Israeli Gulf normalization and also uh, um, uh, reconciliation among GCC rival countries like Saudi Arabia and Qatar. So, would you start,
yes
Dr.
sure
Said?
yeah sure good afternoon everybody good morning the other side of the world so thank you for being with you I will not talk much in this but it's good to start to show from my angle how I see two things normalization and reconciliation with Qatar. Uh, Everybody heard and read about what's going on, but please allow me to intervene in this issue from another angle, which may be different angle. I will talk about both of them within four expressions, four terms. First one is formulate a new order. Second one, which is conflict between interests and values. Third one, which is normalization itself. Fourth one, reconciliation. How is see connection or relations among the four? I believe that is to maintain the world order or the regional order, or to reformulate the regional order or the world order. So what was going on within the last 4 years, which was in the period of presidency of Trump, that was changing or reformulating the regional order, became different. Totally, I can say different from democratic way. Not only different from democratic to Republican, no, it's further. It's different from American to Trumpian. If I talk about the American side or the American portion. which was really too much affecting. And it was of favor of some part of the region. They believe that during Obama, they were suppressed. They were in the marginalized, I can say, or did not achieve whatever they want. When I talk about the conflict between interests and values, we used to see that between ideologies, like, Soviet Union, USA, and so USA and West always talking about values, the Eastern side talking about interest more. Inside each country, from the West especially, there are small, not appearing conflict, not appearing the conflict between values and interest inside each country. But what happened within the last 4 years, that it was inside USA, inside Europe, that the conflict between values and interests were very high, very high. So it was more than pragmatism, it was more than pragmatism, I'm sorry. So interests were really high to deal with interests with other countries, which was really very good with the submerging, or let me say, this is how can I say, the emerging countries like the Gulf countries and Israel in the era or the time of Trump. Normalization, it's like, to me, it's like Cold War, not in the meaning, but in the position. Cold War is only, or I think it's only between Russia, Soviet Union, and USA. Normalization is only for relation of Israel with others, like Arab or Muslim countries. When we see the relations between Japan and other countries, it's normal. We don't say normalizing Japanese relation with any other country. But when it comes to Israel normalizing, from this, it's something like goal to Israel. It's something maybe created during Nasser's era, the Arab nationalism or so. So it was something like goal. So in this case, if I think that normalization was a goal to Israel, and maybe it was a tool or a card of pressure or card of negotiation of the Gulf countries. Like, for example, I believe it's not goal to the Gulf countries, but it's more tool and like steps for what coming more. And it's also like card of negotiation, like help me to counter the JCPOA, for example, as you want also as Israel, or help me as United States of America, which is represented in Trumpian way. It was also negotiation card to Sudan to release the sanctions, to Morocco, to confess or recognition of Western Sahara, which I worked in 1995-96. So it shaped this way. When it comes to reconciliation, so boycott or besieging, whatever you call it, it was a card of pressure, okay? Not a goal at all. It was just card of pressure, and the good time, it was during Trump time, because it was, as I told you, as I see it, it's Trumpian way. And the boycott, it was, as I told you, card of pressure. Why? Card of pressure against Iran. Card of pressure against Turkey. Against Iran because they want Iran to be more isolated. Because Iran relations with Qatar was not that new. It has some before in security-wise in the Gulf and securing the gas and the relation in the gas field and so. And the relations between Turkey and Iran, it has been changed. It became pretending as much better under the umbrella of Islam, no Sunni, no Shiite here. Just having one enemy, which is who is ever against Palestinian cause, like Israel, for example, or other Arabian countries who are in relations with Israel. That's why you can see that the relations with Iran, JCPOA, the normalization itself, how it's also connected to boycotting, and then comes to reconciliation. And the Palestinian cause is in the middle. It became also not a goal to solve out. It became like two to all competing countries. Also boycotting or besieging, but I believe it's boycotting actually for some reason. So boycotting is also something like a reason for competition, or it has been used for competition and rivalries, and it will be appearing during our coming 3 lectures in the Horn of Africa, for example. And now when we look at normalization and reconciliation, if I'm understood, I hope I could bring my points out to you. If we look at the normalization and reconciliation together now, as I told you, it's within interests. No values are here. I don't see lack of values or increase of values, but it's a game of interest among all players. And the main key point here, the Gulf countries would like to be participants of the game in the Middle East and other regions. They were not before. It was always between superpowers or great powers and regional powers like Iran, Turkey, and Israel. So the changing of the game, which really changed the regional order, that the Gulf countries with big money and big goals, they start to participate in this game, to join or to participate of formulating or reformulating the regional order. And it was through this, the 4 expressions which I have mentioned, or the other 3, which is using the conflict of between interest, as I said, and values, but press more toward the interest. We are here. Who will play with us? This is a game, which was against the main rules of the actual game of competition, of international and true regional powers. And also it was something like to say, remember, that word reconciliation, just to get you back a little bit, for example, please. Reconciliation, it's a word always used in between 2 parts of the main body, 2 organs of the main body. There is no reconciliation between 2 countries, right? So because they believe that the GCC was one body and this reconciliation between 2 parts of this body. But is really GCC is one body? Was it really one body? So I think it's not reconciliation. I don't think it's reconciliation. It's a temporary solution to keep and maintain one main goal, which I'm ending my short speech now. The main goal of all what's going on right now until the last moment of Trump, and it could easily succeeded to make it extended, is that we need to keep the regional order. We have changed it within the last 4 years. No way to change it. No way to come back before 2017. No way to the GCPOA, which is one of the main elements to change the regional order with. No way that Israel is not in the true community of the Arab countries. You can notice that when you see, when I was in the United States Central Command, I talked to a big head, I don't like to mention his name, in the planning section. And I asked him when Israel will be within or working with US CENTCOM, not Europcom. And he told me, still not yet. This one of, how can I say, notifications that now Israel, because you know, US CENTCOM is what? In Bright Star, we were just training with United States, it was with US CENTCOM and other allies. So Israel maybe will be in this kind of military maneuvers with Arab countries. And this is a new regional order, which or the current winning or strong part in the region would like to keep and not to change. This is how I see all of them, but maybe in different angles. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Said. So this is a not the main part of this tomorrow's seminar, but is there any but it's a very hot issue. And is there anyone just want to say something on it? Maybe Marc and Eric or anyone? It's okay.
I think Professor Sayed took us already very far and very high.
So if I may, just
food for thought.
Yeah, please, Eric.
Yeah, so sorry. I can just be I can just fully agree with this what Dr. Sayed told us, because this is what's happening. It's about the former order and to keep it against Iran. I would just emphasize something that he mentioned about the reconciliation. Yes, I agree. It's not about reconciliation. It goes firstly about the GCC unity. Now, if you are looking at to the deal that they concluded on the 5th of January, there were normally 13 points to meet by Qatar before being again full member of the GCC. And Qatar didn't comply with any one of the 13 points, any one. And one big question we still have is, what was the deal behind to get this such situation? We don't know what was the deal. Some people are thinking that it was about to please the Biden administration. I don't believe it, because Jared Kushner worked on very hardly, and it's not to please Biden. It's one thing. Secondly, about the acceptance from UAE. I'm living in the UAE, so I have this angle. So you see that Abu Dhabi is not very with this deal. It's since the deal, you have the big leaders of Abu Dhabi just saying nothing about the deal. So you don't have any points coming from Mohammed bin Zayed. We have nothing coming from Abdullah bin Zayed. So the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, nothing about these points. Only it came only by the Gargash, just to mention the positive things. And after this, you have Dubai. Dubai is very pleased because, of course, it's aiming about the interest, economic interest. So Dubai can be pleased, but definitively Abu Dhabi is not. And so about GCC reconciliation, we still needed to have more details to know what will be the next step, because we have a lot of question marks about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric. And okay, we move on to the main part of today's seminar. It's about new great game for the Red Sea and Horn of Africa. So first of all, we request Professor Marc Lavergne on the broad introduction of this area, Red Sea and Horn of Africa, and particularly from the side of African side. And we have now mutually complementary, presentation experts, and from the Arab side, Gulf side, and the European side, and Professor Lavergne. So would you make a presentation to us about the African side, mainly African side of this very important region? Please.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I was tasked to present the general frame of the situation around the Red Sea, but I choose to emphasize on the Horn of Africa, which I know for roughly, no, exactly 50 years now. I kept visits that went along this long period. So I think this is an area which is not so well known. To me, geopolitics is more than international relations. It also takes its roots within the societies and within the milieu that is the natural framing of the areas. And the Red Sea and the Horn of Africa are very special and not so well known. So many things are happening at the moment in this part of the world, which are difficult to understand from an external point of view. So I was tasked to present briefly the fundamentals of the situation in this area. The Red Sea, definitely. I don't know if you can see the PowerPoint, or should I try to activate
yes.
it?
Would you share with us?
You get it? Okay, fine.
No, not yet. Oh,
Not yet? You don't see it. I don't know how to.
Share screen, share screen. Green one.
The green one? Okay. Okay.
Share screen, yeah.
Yeah. Need to be back now. Well. Here you are. Here we are. No, I lost. Oh. Yeah.
I think you have to open your presentation first and then share screen. I'm not sure.
Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah. Wait. Okay, I'm back. Now, screen. Yeah, here we are. Do you see it now?
Yes.
Or not yet? Yes?
Yes.
Yes, you get it? Okay, fine.
So open it, full screen, I think you have.
Full screen, okay. Yeah.
Possible.
How is it? You get it full screen?
Okay, just maybe you can continue if Satoshi doesn't mind this way.
Yeah. Okay, first of all, the Red Sea has been, since the dawn of mankind, kind of a corridor of trade between Europe and the Far East somehow, and through the Mediterranean and the Indian Ocean. It has been also crossing between Africa and Asia. Just remember the time of Moses when he crossed the Red Sea with his people to escape the Pharaoh. The Red Sea is a kind of Mediterranean Sea, in fact, because the civilization around the Red Sea is broadly the same, be it on one side or another. It's so even more than the Mediterranean that we know in Europe. It's not a border between Africa and Asia. It's a link between these two areas. And the Red Sea is a fault line in terms of geology, which is separating, and it's very deeply entrenched between Asia and Africa. But the people on the seashores, they share the same life, the same customs, the same interests. Those who are behind in the mountains, be it in Yemen or in Ethiopia, they are very different. So what is the major feature of this area is this difference between the seashores with nomads, herders, seamen, people who are open to the world, who are traveling, who don't accept strong powers. They feel very independent. And from Somalia to Sudan or Arabia, the same difference is to be noticed between the highlands behind and the seashores. The highlands are very remote, are closed worlds that are fearing the aggression from the outside, and they are very stable civilizations with kingdoms, sometimes be it again in Yemen or in Ethiopia for ages. So now new states have been built after the opening of the Suez Canal. The colonial powers took root on the seashores because they needed harbors, but they didn't too much enter the highlands because they were not able to, and they had no interest into that. So France, Great Britain, Italy took colonies along the shores, and this increased the difference between the seashores and the hinterland. The hinterland kept with their traditional masters, being the emperor of Ethiopia, or in Yemen, the people who are around the imam who was running the country. So these countries are somehow twofold, and there are first of all this rift between these two sides. On the hinterland, strong kingdoms, but very conservative and not open to the world. And on the seashore, people who are moving freely from one side to another. For instance, I remember a friend of mine in Asmara, in Eritrea. He had 4 women, one in each of those harbors. He was from Saudi, from Jeddah, but he had a wife in Sudan, another in Hodeidah in Yemen, and another in Massawa in Eritrea. And this is quite a common feature of the societies in this part of the world. These people move around and they have linked, for instance, if we come back to Ethiopia, the billionaire, Mr. Mohammed El-Amoudi, he is one of the richest men in the world. And he is both Ethiopian and Saudi. That is, he lives in Jeddah, but he is Ethiopian by birth and nationality, or he has both nationalities. And his interest, his view of the world is constructed around the Red Sea. And this is from that part of the world that he developed his activities all around. People are moving, so, and they have the flexibility in language and in tradition. On the highlands, it's quite different. I mean, people are not so flexible in their mind. They keep close to their ancient religion, be it Christianity in Ethiopia, which was Christian much before Europe, the 4th century. And on the other hand, Yemen has this special understanding of Islam with the Zaydi sect that is now represented by the Houthi fighters. Another element that should be recalled is that the Red Sea is not a closed world, since when you look at it, in the Arab League, you also integrate Djibouti, Somalia, and even the Comoros Islands on the Indian Ocean. That is, there is no such a thing as an Arab world, so to say, but also a larger world that integrates some other dimensions which are rooted deep in history, up to Madagascar, to the south of the Indian Ocean. This is something that is now renewed, revived with the Daesh intervention in Mozambique, in Cabo Delgado, which is a very devastating enterprise by Daesh to counter the exploitation of gas and to use the poverty of the population far from its roots in the Arabic Peninsula or in the Middle East, but still in this part of the world, you can feel in Zanzibar also that you belong to something as an extension of the Red Sea. So the colonial powers built new states, states like Somalia, for instance, or Djibouti, or Eritrea. These states were along colonial borders, but they integrate the difference that is together the seashores and the highlands. So these countries have all a difficulty to create a nation, to build a state. They are very unstable. And when you look at it, there are strong trends to secession, to separation. And the central states have a lot of difficulties to impose their rules themselves, be it from the central highland, like Sana'a in Yemen, for instance, or like Addis Ababa, the new flower, which was built only 150 years ago to control this vast territory of Ethiopia. These centers, and the same goes for Mogadishu, which was the Italian capital of Somalia, they are in a tremendous difficulty to unite the people and the tribes that are gathered within their territory, because these lands are divided through tribes, clans, confederations, and not only by these split that I mentioned between the seashores and the hinterland. Even in the hinterland, even on the seashores, there are strong divides between the people that don't feel to have much in common. Look, for instance, at this picture of Ethiopia. There are about 80
Marc,
people. Yes.
Press on the slide, because we need to
okay.
the big slide. Yeah.
Yeah.
Slide. Yeah.
I'm a beginner on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, we missed the previous slide then, but you all know the general overview of the area.
خد بالك من الوقت. خد بالك من الوقت. خد بالك من الوقت. التوقيت. خد بالك.
ايوه انا همشي اسرع. Yeah. So 80 peoples in Ethiopia. You can see on this slide the strong divide between the Muslim communities that are in green and the Christian communities in blue. This is also a major divide in a country like Ethiopia, or even in Eritrea. But we could say the same about Yemen, between the Zaydi and the Shafi'i on the coast. Within the Islam, there are also strong divides within these communities. What I show in Somalia, not to go too much into this problem of Somalia, but there is really an imbroglio with different clans overlapping and fighting each other and refusing to unite within one country. Let's now move to Sudan, because Sudan has also a window to the Red Sea. Sudan is a huge country. It used to be the giant of Africa, and it's now divided also between North and South. What I would emphasize there, it's of course a huge country with a lot of diversity in climate, from the desert to the rainforest, from the north to the south, on 3,000 kilometers. But it's a vast plain. There's no problem between the seashore and the mainland. It's all mainland, and it's a huge space where people move freely, and there are also hundreds of communities, different communities living there, not only in the south, but also in the north. And the south fought for 50 years to be recognized by the center, by Khartoum. I was a friend and a colleague to the one who became the leader of the rebellion of the south, the Sudan People's Liberation Movement. the name itself of this movement shows that the Southerners, they didn't fight for separation, for secession. They fought for the equality of rights within the United Sudan. And they at last obtained independence in 2011, but they kept the name Sudan. They consider themselves as Sudanese as much as the people of the northern Sudan. And it shows that behind this diversity, there is at least in the case of Sudan, on the contrary, a will to keep close. And still now, Southern Sudan doesn't feel foreign to Northern Sudan and plays a role in the trial to settle the internal problems within Northern Sudan. As we well know, and even those days, there are still very hot problems in Darfur, in the Nuba Mountains, on the Red Sea, and in various parts of Sudan. And what is at stake now is not so much the unity of the country, but the equality between the center, the central regions, which are Arabized and Islamized, and the peripheries, who feel marginalized and frustrated. The same somehow could be said about Southern Sudan, where the independence was taken by a bunch of officers that are now ruling the country very ruthlessly without taking care of the diversity of the population and the needs of this population of Southern Sudan. So this gives scopes to many developments all around the Red Sea and in the Horn of Africa that are not ripe now for solution. And it seems doubtful that the foreign powers, be it the powers from the Arabic Peninsula, be it the international community, will be able to help solving these problems of unity in diversity, be it in the Horn of Africa or be it in Sudan itself. And the situation is the more dramatic that these countries are from the poorest in the world, and that they need foremost development. And the development trials in Ethiopia with, for instance, the Great Renaissance Dam, as we see, have also risen a lot of confrontation with neighboring powers, neighboring countries. So now the Horn of Africa is also split, and you see some alliances which are very volatile between Kenya entering enlarging somehow the Horn of Africa by being interested in exploiting offshore petroleum oil fields at the border with Somalia. So internal rifts are still to forecast, unfortunately, in the Horn of Africa and maybe in Sudan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marc, for your presentation on African side, domestic and regional issues. And before moving on to Eric's presentation, can I just ask you, Marc, ask you a small question? It's about Sudan. Sudan is part of Horn of Africa or wider Horn of Africa region, but it's, of course, it's in the Nile Valley country. And now there's there's a conflict between Egypt and Ethiopia. But Sudan, traditionally, of course, it's an Arab country and separated, seceded south part, and now southern part is seceded. So northern part of Sudan is Arab country, but there's something curious about it. And now that Sudan's position is not always Arab from my point of view. So, but you're expert on this region. What's your understanding of Sudan's position between Ethiopia and Egypt? Is there any any peculiarity in it?
Yeah, this is a very interesting point because, in fact, you're fully right. The Sudanese, they didn't solve this question, which is a wrong question in my opinion, of whether they are Africans or Arabs. They are both, and there is no solution to that. It's very strange to notice. I lived for many years in Sudan, for over 10 years at a row. And so I could discuss this with many leaders and with the local population. They all Sudanese, there is a strong feeling of being Sudanese. That's what I mentioned before. But Sudanese feel closer to Ethiopians, to Somalians, in their way of life, in their values, in their, not the religion, not the language, but the individual behavior and the values of music, food, and all what matters really in the relationship between peoples. They are much closer to the Horn of Africa than to Egypt, for instance. And they feel when they go abroad, that is in the Arabic Peninsula, as workers, for instance, that they are not considered as Arabs. So this also reflects in their own sense of belonging to the Horn of Africa more than to the Arab world. They always feel very careful. For instance, we were talking about the recognition of Israel. I really doubt that the Sudanese people feel very much concerned with this Palestinian question. They are more looking now to Western Africa for some part, or to the south, even to Southern Sudan. They feel more involved in the problems of the Great Lakes, of the Chad Basin, of the Sahel altogether. One should not forget that the Islam, even despite Sudan is very close to Saudi Arabia and to the to Mecca, it was Islamized by pilgrims that came all over by foot from Senegal, from Mauritania, from the Maghreb, you know, and they settled in the Sudanese villages, and they took root there, and they brought Islam, which is a very different Islam with the Turuq. This is the brotherhoods from the Egyptian Islam, for instance, which is based on the literature and the literacy and the discussion through Al-Azhar University, of course. They are very special case, and they, somehow the Arab world is something that they benefit from, but they feel very different. And in fact, they feel it's such a huge country that they don't look too much outside and more to inside.
Thank you very much. So now we move on to our next presentation by Eric Michiels. Is it okay, my pronunciation of your name? So
perfect.
Sorry, my poor pronunciation. But then it's about international rivalry in Horn of Africa and the Red Sea. So we would pretty much like to hear Europeans' view on these issues. So please, Eric.
Yes, thank you. So about my name, you know, you are not the only one. I think that it's only my country that can pronounce the name. So I don't care about it. So it's not an issue, and it's just something that I used to. I will try to share my screen. Yeah, just to be sure that I got this one. Do you see it? Are you getting my screen?
Yes. Yes. Perfect.
It's perfect. So you have my presentation. So yes. So you speak about international rivalries. I would say it's maybe only about the Greek powers, because international, it means with every countries, and Dr. Sayed will address with the more regional power. So we divided the presentation into two parts, and I will just focus on the great powers in the Red Sea. And yes, of course, this is the outlines of my presentation, and I will firstly consider this about which actors I will speak about, because when we speak about international actors, we have a lot. And secondly, I will say, okay, what is so important in the Horn of Africa, or in the Red Sea region for these international actors? And last point I will address you, it's how they exert their influence in the region. So a short brief about that. Yes, about this international actors. Of course, this we have what I consider the three main global powers in the world. So we have, of course, the United States, we have China, the two competing for the first rank. Of course, it's about military power, economic power, influence power, and so on. But we cannot ignore also Russia. Russia is maybe not looks not so as powerful like the two other sides. But don't forget that Russia still has a great military power. From my side, it's a very influential power, and has also this a big about territory. So we have to consider, because Russia is trying to influence anything, and also to counter US, and to be also sometimes beside China. And you can imagine that for a European guy, I would like to address also Europe. Do I have to address? So, if we see Europe, Europe is an economical power. So we have a lot of exchange. Of course, we have some military meaning, because inside Europe, if we take UK, United Kingdom, we have two nuclear power. We have two countries having the veto right at the UN Security Council. So if we are counting the number of soldiers we have in Europe, amount. So, but if I have to be honest, Europe, it's just this fragile, lacks of unity when it's about foreign policy. Europe has some difficulties to have one voice for any trouble, and it's sometimes competing internally about what is the stand they have to adopt to face any problem, any issue in the world. So on that way, yes, Europe, it's not always this a great power for international issues, but it's a good point of comparison when we are just addressing some points, when we are discussing about US, Russia, and China. We can compare sometimes some points with Europe. Yes, is it the same? But during this presentation, just to make this some comparison points, I will just address two main countries, not as global power, but just as comparison points. It's about UK and France. Why these two countries? It's because, like I just mentioned, France and UK are two nuclear powers, have veto rights, and have a colonial past in Africa, in the region. So they exerted some kind of influence. So it will be very interesting to compare the very big powers to these two ones. Yeah. So what makes the Horn of Africa is very important for them? I will maybe disappoint Marc, because my believing when I'm analyzing the three main powers, they don't have so so big interest in the country, in the nations ashore the Red Sea. It's not about the population and so on. It's about, like Dr. Sayed mentioned at the beginning of the conference, about interest. And interest. So we have the Red Sea. The Red Sea, it's firstly this commercial routes between Asia and Europe, and also the rest of it's connecting the world. Don't forget that about 10% of the international trades, it's the Red Sea. I've heard this, a lot of figures about the international trades. Sometimes some people are saying that it's about 20%, 30%, but the figures I have, it's 10%. It's already a lot, but also the 30% of the oil. It's yes. So yes, it's firstly this a very big waterway for the international trades. And of course, we have two choke points on closing the Red Sea. We have, of course, the Canal of Suez and also the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb, the two ones. I highlight in red. So it's a very strange fact, very important to know, because for example, for Suez Canal, it was already closed twice in the past. It was closed in 56 and also during the period from 67 to 75. So two main period where it was not possible to cross the Canal of Suez. So very important. And so for the three major powers, they needed to keep it open. What we have also, it's the Yemen war. So Yemen war, it's about security. You know that we are facing in the Red Sea some security issue coming from Yemen. So we have, for example, at different times, the last 2 years, this incident with missiles fired by party against commercial tankers. We have also sea mines, and we have also the waterborne improvised explosive device. It's like a navy drones laden with this explosive and aiming to destroy any vessels or something. If we have also this Iran, it's a major concern for US. And if you see the Red Sea, of course, we have Iran being involved, or it's allegedly involved in Yemen, supporting the Houthis. But we have also a huge task force from the Iranian Navy always being present in very close to the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb. Task force, carrier task force, like this, we have this, for the moment in the North Arabian Sea with the Nimitz. Everybody knows the Nimitz, and the carrier grouped with some frigates, destroyer, and support ships. We have the same from Iran, and very particular that is the presence of Iranian Navy in the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb. It's permanent. Permanent. There is no gap. Sometimes yes, 1 or 2 days, but no more. So very important. About terrorism. Terrorism is a very big concern for the major power. Yes and no. They are more concerned about piracy. Piracy in the Red Sea and about this at the shore of Somalia. So it's something that it's very important to know that it's more about piracy than the terrorism. One thing that's very important to understand also that for Russia, the Red Sea, it's the secondary exit from the Mediterranean Sea, and from this strategic point of view, very important. I want also to address something that not everybody knows about the submarine cables, because we are living in the 21st century, and it's about communication. Communication is paramount now. It's not only for the social media, but it's about this finance. It's connecting the stock exchange between London, Paris, Tokyo, and Beijing. So it's very important. And if you see the world communication cables, a lot are passing underway of the Red Sea, so very important on that way. Normally, it's always built by this international companies, but you can see that China also laid down its cable in the Red Sea to be more independent for the communication. And what I'm showing you also on my slide, it's the network of the National Security Agency, the US one, having some stations in the Middle East, and one it's a place that is in Djibouti to be able to communication and to be able to intercept communication on the cables. And we have also two other stations on in the Arabian Persian Gulf. So yes, it's very important that you know that, because communication it's now one of the main assets to lead the world. Yes, how do they exert the influence? Firstly, it's about ensuring security. We have a lot of international operation in the region. Most of the operation that is highlighted in red are coming are led by the US. It's led by the US, but you have a lot of international cooperation. It's not only US that you have. In the CTF 151, that it's controlling the Bab and Mandeb in the Gulf of Aden. We have other countries coming from Saudi Arabia, but also UAE and so on. So it's not only US. We have also the European Union being involved with the operation Atalanta. It's more against piracy. NATO was involved in the region, but they ceased the operation. It was the Ocean Shield operation. They stopped this. They ceased this operation in 2016. So there is no NATO operation currently at sea in the region. What is also very important when we are speaking about security and military presence, it's about, Dr. Sayed already mentioned that. We have a lot of ports in the region, mainly on the western shores of the Red Sea. In Egypt, we have already 20 different ports. 20, it's a lot. After we have this, a few in Sudan, and we have, of course, the main port of Djibouti, because it's very strategic located. And from Saudi Arabia, we have only six main ports. And if you compare this 6 main ports and on the distance, the range, the number of kilometers of shores, and you compare it to Egypt, a huge difference. You have to know that in Saudi Arabia, 50% of the ports are owned or operated by UAE, not only by Saudi Arabia. We have only 2 main ports of military interest. It's Port Sudan, where we have now this Russia and Turkey, and we have Djibouti, with a lot of countries sharing this, sometimes some facility being very close to each other. So we have, for example, the big base Lavergne from the US, hosting also the UK presence. We have also France, Italy, Japan is also present there. So a lot of countries are present in Djibouti, and of course it's about the security. But Djibouti is now overcrowded, and you can assume that you can have some conflict. So we have some incidents between the Chinese soldiers and the US. For example, Chinese soldiers using laser against the aircraft from the US, and so making some incidents. What is very important to notice is that for China, that base in Djibouti, it's what I will call the most active action from Xi Jinping, because having a base abroad, it's something very, very new, I would say. Yes, what we have, it's a military cooperation agreement. Of course, to have a base, you need to have a military cooperation agreement. And I highlighted that recently Russia concludes 21 different cooperation agreements in Africa, just recently, and 3 are in the region with Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia. It is what I highlighted with the yellow stars. Yes, 3 in the region. It's something. It's something. About economic, yes, economic. We can say this a lot. So firstly, about sanctions. It's mainly this from US. US is using this sanctions tools to make some pressure and to get what he wants. But currently, there is no sanctions against these countries in the Horn of Africa. So the last one was against Sudan, and it was revoked in 2017. But US still threats the country about this sanctions. Like the US was threatening Egypt with sanctions about the weapon sales from Russia to Egypt. About financial flow, very important. Everybody thinks that China is the most important investor in Africa, but China is owning debt. It's mortgage. That it's not investment. But investment, direct investment, what is very interesting for any countries, it's not the champion. You see that you have the US, UK, France, and China. It's only the fourth. We don't see this Russia about investment, but it's very important to make a big difference between money flow and investment, direct investment. About import and export. If you look at this at Africa, I'm sorry, because the countries are in French, because I could not translate it on time. But if you see about the commercial balance with China, everybody thinks that China is doing very well in Africa, but China is exporting a lot to Africa, but it's not buying product from Africa. So it's just this 10% that it's buying. The main destination of African products is Europe. So for European countries, it's very important to have a very good balance, economical balance, and it's not with China. So China, it's maybe a very big player, economical player, but we have to be very precautionist about what we are to do. Technology is very important, and this is one I addressed the concern about the submarine cables, but also one challenging point now and competing point. It's about the 5G mobile communication with Huawei, for example. And so we have some deals being done. So US is preventing Huawei to deploy its assets in US, in Europe, and so on. But this Huawei, it's a very assertive in Saudi, in UAE, but also in Egypt to be able to deploy its technology. And of course, it's a strategic alliance. What is the advantage of China? It's to be able to deploy very quickly and very cheap. Yeah. About diplomatic and politics, of course, I spoke about the economical sanction, but also we have to think about pressure. It's like the pressure exerted by US to have Sudan signing the Abraham Agreement. It was a deal about if you sign, I will remove you from the list of a country financing terrorism. One very good tool used by Russia is about veto. If we are looking at the in the history, the 15 last years, only the 15 last years, there were this 35 vetoed at the United Nations Security Council, 35, and Russia put its veto 24th time. For this US, it was only 6 times. And for China, it was 30 times. Okay, it makes more, but China always put its veto only together with Russia, never alone, never alone. And if you are studying the long histories since 46, China just put this twice, 2 times a veto alone, but normally it's just following Russia. Military cooperation, yes, I spoke about this, Russia. It's a tool to make a strategic alliance. Arms sales. Here, I address you the figures about arms sales. And of course, one of the biggest arms seller is Russia. Russia counts for 49% of the sales, weapon sales in Africa. And here, I have some figures in below this about the millions dollars trade on Africa and Saudi Arabia. And I make a big difference between both, because we can see that the influence is not the same. It's not the same. We see that Russia is the champion in the Horn of Africa, and we have US and UK champion in Saudi Arabia. So I don't speak about Yemen, of course, but this is very important, and you see that China, it's not so so present about selling weapons. No, and comparing to France or even to UK, they're very small. So it's not with Chinese weapon the difference. Yes, here it is about Russian arms. You see that it's very important in the Horn of Africa, but you see that it's very important in all the Africa. About cultural and information, from informational, yes, we have the colonies, mainly UK influence and UK languages. But I think that sometimes it can be something very good, a good value, added value, but sometimes it can play against you, like it was in Egypt. I think that it's sometimes the English influence, it's not always good perceived by Egyptian. Yes, education, it's something very important. So And you see that there's a ranking of the most interesting countries for studying. And of course, we see that the United States, United Kingdom, and so on, China. But we have to be very precautionist because it's a global figures. So if you see where are they coming from, yes, it's not always coming from this the region. If you see Russia, it's good ranking, but all the people coming into for studying in Russia are from neighboring countries mainly. And if we are looking at this to the particular region in Africa, we have this the figures till this 2014, and after I put this the figures for 2018, the last we have, and of course it's double in France, but you see that China in red with 81,000 students is just increasing a lot. It's attracting more and more students in China because of the policy to offer everything. So it's very cheap. So yes, China is doing very, very good. Yes, about cultural institutions, it's a ranking. It's about the yes, museum, schools, and so on. All in cultural institute in Africa, and you see that France is it's the best one. It's the best one. But China, you see there's a small amount, but now it's almost at the same level of US. It's just increasing. And if we see that it is the past 2 years, they opened at least 5 institutes in the whole of Africa. About medias are also two things very important to mention, because we know CNN, we know BBC, we know everything about this, the US medias, but also China tried to be very present and opened recently in Kenya an African channel, CGTN. So it looks like it's an African media, but it's 100% owned by Beijing. It's just about spreading its propaganda. You have to know that it's about 150 journalists being present in this media, and it's very important to say that yearly China it's educating 1,000 African journalists. So 1,000 journalists are educated in China and going back to Africa, 1,000 African. Also about Russia with Russia Today. Russia Today, it's one of the most famous channels. You can see it everywhere. You have a local anchorage in Europe, in France, and so on. And they are starting to also to have this local anchorage in Africa, having this also Arabic version. You can find it Russia Today in all languages. Very, very important. Yeah. So my partial conclusion. Like I said, it's all about interest, and on Africa and Red Sea, it's from my perspective not the top priority of the 3 major powers. It's not. It's just a tool to achieve major priority of the top power. For US, the main priority is to confront the US competitors, mainly China. It's the first, and they will do also by being present in on Africa, in the Middle East. And after that, it's about securing the national interest. For China, of course, the region, it's about supporting the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. and so they have to do. And for Russia, the interest in the region, I would say it's pretty new, and it's about just continuing its strategy in the Eastern Mediterranean, because for Russia, the main priority is the Eastern Mediterranean, and of course because the Red Sea is connected to the Eastern Mediterranean, they want to be present, and they are just going on now. It's a very recent. Of course, it's a way of sorts to be a stone in the shoes of the US. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Eric. And we talk about your presentation a lot, but we have another presentation by Said. So, and Eric, you will make first response to Said's presentation after him. So, Dr. Said, would you start your presentation about regional perspective on the rivalry in the Red Sea and Fauna Africa? So you share the PowerPoint. As you know, I have shared or make it downloadable all three PowerPoint presentations. I uploaded the last one by Dr. Said. So you can see it on the screen, and also you can download it. So please.
So is it clear in front of you now, please?
Yes, that's great.
Okay. So thank you very much again. So I'm lucky to speak twice. I wanted to say first, before I talk, really, I would like to thank you, Satoshi, for something. The selection of the three topics are really too much related. They are surrounding Al Jazeera and Sham, surrounding the Middle East, and they are too much related. And that's why, as you noticed from my colleagues, that when they were talking, that they touched a little bit, East Mediterranean, the Middle East, so they are all connected. I will try to talk very briefly because I would like to give opportunity to Eric to give some comments, as really is too much specialist in the region, as he is defense attaché for the 6 Gulf countries in addition to Iran and Yemen. So maybe he can fulfill more. That's why I will talk very quickly, if you don't mind. And I will not mention a lot of things, but you can find in my paper, you can find everything. Okay, this is what I will talk about. When I will talk about the importance of the region, for sure I will not repeat what Eric said, because he talked about international importance. I will talk about the regional importance, how it is important to the regional actors. And if you agreed with me what I mentioned in the very beginning, when I said that it's now really the true thing that is reformulating the regional order. It's not only for the Middle East, but also for the other regions around, including the East Mediterranean, including Sahara and Sahara, including what we are talking about right now in East of Africa. So if we agree on that, then I can continue the same way. Okay, so I believe that this geographical location is very important to all acting, or this, what can I say, the regional actors, not only because it's connecting Red Sea, Indian Ocean, Africa, even with Europe up to North and West, but it's also for them because it's full a lot of wealth. It has its huge strategical location, and also it's something like, which I call the cantonment of seaports. Not usual seaports, but on the main passage for all shipping, for trade and commerce, and even military reasons of movement, for all over the world. So it's very important to them if they would like to be existing in this region. And for sure, this region, it has, how can I say, the global strategies, which has been issued by USA, by Russia, by China, by Europe. So I think this region is key country for them. That's why if I'm regional actors, I would like to meet their strategies. So I think this will be the good location to meet them. Maritime strategic positioning, especially for Djibouti. As we know, it's full of military bases. And I heard one time when I was visiting, I was working in the United States Central Command in Tampa, but I was visiting my officers in the, which we call it Advanced Command in Djibouti. So they told me that Djibouti is very happy, and one of the income of the country and the good relations and the gravity, center of gravity of the country is that it's really located here, full of the military bases of strong powers and regional powers as well. And for sure, it's good for investment and it has a lot of wealth. So we will not talk much about that. And then I will go directly how I see the main goals for each country of the actors. And forgive me, I will talk about, I think, 8 countries. So I will try to be brief, as I mentioned. So I think for Israel, Eilat also is important. It's like blocked area, you know. I mean, when you come from the Red Sea, and I was working as liaison officer with Israeli Defense Force in Taba in 1994-95. So I remember I read how much it was really important to them, and they would like to enlarge the international navigation to Eilat. And that's why it was important. It's still important to them. And, you know, as Israel, I would like to see my competitors, and I would like to find them in this region, because Iran is a main competitor to Israel, as you know, it's even enemy. And you know, the maritime traffic, as I told you, for them it's coming to the Mediterranean Sea. Why not Eilat to find some way to go to the Mediterranean Sea as well, not only Suez Canal? So it could be somehow competitor to Egypt in this issue. Iran, you know, this is Bab el-Mandab. It's very important to them because it's not only Hormuz. Iran would, I mentioned before in my lectures, even with you, Satushi, when I was saying that it needs 2 main bridges. One of them to Bab el-Mandab, which is the Red Sea. The other one is to the Mediterranean. The first one is through Yemen. The other one is through Syria and Lebanon. Turkey, you know, influence is very important, same like Iran and Israel, but its influence is because Turkey, I think, is thinking more than regional, more than other, is thinking international. Turkey would like to be international power, really great power. They work on this way. Yes, some obstacles meet them, but they still continue on this. Remember, they have a military base in Qatar, military base in Somalia. They think about military base, not in Sawakin, but maybe in Port Sudan, which is more eligible to that. They think about military base also in Libya. It's not still military base, but they are on a step for that, and maybe in South Africa as well. So this is more international than regional, but here, one of the key areas is the Horn of Africa for sure. Ethiopia knows all of that. And it has main problem now is Egypt, and they would like to be needed by all regional actors, even international actors. So they would like to say, we are the key country in this key area. We are more influential even in Somalia. And that's why they try to build up 4 seaports in Djibouti. Reconciliation, or let me say peace, or coming back to relation with Eritrea is very important to them because they lost it after, you know, taking Eritrea away from Ethiopia. Saudi Arabia. I mentioned before about strategic depth. Strategic depth, I believe it's specific area to secure my country. There is internal and external. One of the weak external strategic depths to Saudi Arabia and other Gulf countries, but Saudi Arabia more, is the southwest, which is this region. It's very important to them because it's also the basket of the food, you know, food for their food security, and other Gulf countries, but Saudi Arabia is the biggest one, so they are caring more about this issue, and water even for sure. Emirates, seaports. Always I would say, if you would like to know how Emirates think, follow up with the head of the seaport authority in Emirates. So whenever you find him, visit some place, good, this is the new vision, this is the new extension of thinking of Emirates strategy. And I think this is one of the main areas to expand this kind of vision. And for sure, yes, securing the international shipping because seaports mean shipping. And remember, Socotra, this is very small, but really very important because the water still competitor, not only to Emirates, but as economic competitor, but security-wise against China by USA. So it's because it watched the water. And why the water? The water, China is very big, more than me for sure. And the west side, they need to be fed from the water, which is west as well. So it's shorter distance to China from the west, which is the water. So the water must be under somehow control or supervision by intelligence, could be in Qatar. So here Emirates playing very big role. Egypt for sure, because it's not only Bab el-Mandab, it's not only Horn of Africa, but Suez Canal. Without Suez Canal, nothing to be done. And for Egypt, without Bab el-Mandab, nothing to win or nothing for movement. I give you a very small example of Suez Canal, how it's important, military-wise, connected even with Horn of Africa. Did anybody ask himself if there any war will happen between Turkey and Egypt? One of the reasons no is Suez Canal will be closed to Turkey. Because if war between two countries, no, one of them is Egypt, you can yet use Suez Canal. So here, one of the points, by the way, and you can see now how this region is very important to Egypt as well. And that's why Egypt tried to find some ways. It has good in South Sudan. It's increasing, the relations now after what's going on, this new regional order was good with Sudan against Ethiopia, but it needs more as, even within the overlooking countries, which is headed by Saudi Arabia and the Horn of Africa, on the Red Sea, I'm sorry. Qatar, it's really, really locked for these last 3 years, I think, but in the same time, it would like to find a place for competition and influence. And dividing this crack, the split in the Gulf, really increase more competition everywhere, including this region. So if I see now, as I'm showing here, how is the relations? You find we have these three regional powers, and we have 5 countries which I mentioned. We have Israel, Turkey, and Iran. Yes, and we know now the relation among them. It's really, how can I say, very clever and tactful relations, I can say now. And really, we need to talk about it more, especially Iran and Turkey, but Israel in the middle. Very important here. If I come to the others, Qatar is the only country, has very good relation with the 3 regional powers. Egypt, Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Ethiopia, if I say it's actor, they are not, okay, they don't have good relation with each of them. So this is good for Qatar and good to have good relations even with Ethiopia, and especially in Somalia. These are the hobbits I can see. And I think there are more, because really I did it very quickly, but I can say, see, Somaliland, always I say, I have been asked before, why Somalia to be divided? Why Yemen to be divided? I think one of them, Horn of Africa, one of them, the entrance of the Red Sea and Gulf Eden, because the government of Somalia and government of Yemen agreed together on one thing, so it will be against one of the 2 competitors. If they agreed to have, they are together, for example, let me say, when it was Qatar and others, so with Qatar, so it will be against Egypt and its competitor, and vice versa. So that's why governments there must be, find some, and also, this kind of dividing, it increases the part of influence, because I cannot be in Somalia, Turkish bases over there. So I have to find another way, just maybe with, it's not new dividing, right, by the way, but we can exploit it somehow with our allies, I say Egypt, Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and so on. So this is how I see Rivalry. And very quick again, I can say that I divided in three main, as I'm showing right now, which is economic, political, military, and information environment. So mainly, I can see really Israel was thinking how to increase our technology, because our areas of interest, they need technology, especially in agriculture, food. Remember, drought in Somalia, which maybe can come to Ethiopia somehow. Even they have a lot of rains right now, but you know, this is changing climate. We don't know. North of Africa as well, changing climate will do a lot. So Israel was thinking in this way. And the high technology in agriculture, as I mentioned. And Netanyahu in Ethiopia declared that. In Iran, as I mentioned, they need a place for influence. Turkey is the same, but and especially in Ethiopia and Somalia, they need them because they are against their competitors. Military-wise, we find training by Israel, we find army sale by Israel. Also, we find, you know, this brokerage of army sales by Iran and proxies in Yemen, and this participation in anti-piracy. But by the way, Iran is, I'm sorry, what I mentioned here is something like it was a part of piracy, and they have had some connection with Mujahideen, which is against to the other side, which they are fighting always political Islam or armed Islam, which most of them prescribe terrorists. So, and we can find that Turkey, as I mentioned, that the military base in Somalia. And information, by the way, many agencies, humanitarian, media, news, multi-language, you know, media from Turkey and even Iran, Israel. And by the way, even Egypt now produced something in Amharian to do and, you know, to talk Amharian, which is the language of Ethiopia, if you know that. So I put Qatar on one side and UAE, KSA, Egypt on the other side. But, you know, as I said, strategy of seaports led by UAE is one of the big part of economic influence, which also supports security and military influence, as I mentioned, even not only within Yemen, but also to have some of kind of, you know, sensors for spionage, specific military base, we can say in Assab, and maybe they try in Djibouti, as I said. Egypt is trying to participate in that, funded maybe by other allied countries like Emirates or Saudi Arabia. But as I told you for info, so Al Jazeera is doing a big job, English and French, but I didn't mention here, it's Egypt, as I said, in Amharian language, and we can find Saudi Arabia and Emirates. They produce some channels in other language. Sometimes we don't know that they belong to them, but they are also here, I mean, in this region. Final remarks. Let me tell you, if we believe that along with the three major powers, okay, which is USA, Russia, and China, we have Israel, Turkey, and Iran. They would like to, as I said, formulate the regional order of this region. But Egypt is also there when it comes with KSA, UAE, and Qatar. But what is the problem here? As I said before in the beginning, that the games or rules of the games depend mostly more big powers and regional powers. So when it comes with other actors, so it leads to something which we call it, it creates a lot of rivalry, more complicated competitions among different levels of actors, international, regional, and acting states or Arab states as well. Not only that, but this crack in the Gulf, in the Arab League, which represented by these four Arab countries now in this region in influence competition, I think it created another level of regional rivalry. This created what I can call it lack of management of influence. Because when it was managed by superpowers or major powers and by regional powers, which are regular regional powers, Israel, Iran, and Turkey, and then when it comes to this level, so it will be lack of management of influence according to the rules of the games which are used to be followed. And this lack of management of influence really make threats to the regional security and increase instability of the region, of this region. And that's why China is a big loser in this case, because they are not trained, they are not practiced to deal with this kind of even regular influence, military or political. So what about chaos of influence? Very, very, very difficult to them. This is a big trouble. We believe it's not good, but maybe it's very bad to China as well to continue. Sorry. Turkey is a very strong player. This is one of the main conclusions I would like to say. And I mentioned before, Turkey really international player. They have big issue to do. But I would like to say something. This is like a message to NATO. Turkey is a member in NATO. Turkey tried before to be a member of European Union. But do you really agree as NATO that Turkey to enlarge its power like this, to exploit it? Or it will be headed for you as Turkey continued on its own policy and maybe becomes like competitor or enemy somehow on the Russian side. So this enlarging of the Turkish capability, if really you think you will continue with Turkey, good. But if you believe with the grand strategy that Turkey will be somehow apart, so it will be big disaster to the Western side. This is all from my side, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Said. And there are multiple influences exerted from within the region or neighboring region and internationally. And Eric, one of the points Said emphasized is the lack of influence management, and particularly Turkey's outstanding role. And obviously Turkey is part of NATO allies, and Rick, you are in my understanding, you are coordinating NATO's activity in the Gulf region. So what is your comment, first response to Dr. Said's presentation?
Firstly, to say it was a very good presentation with a lot of points and on. I would like to just to address a few extra points. Firstly, it's a very complicated region, I would say. Normally, it has to be very easy because it's only about, for the major power, for example, initially about interest, about the Red Sea, not about the aside. The country aside are more to sustain this high priority. I would like to mention that so when you are speaking about the three major powers, and you are speaking about like this regional power, like Israel, Turkey, and so on, and Iran, you cannot understand what's happening in the region if you are not looking what's happening in the Arabian Persian Gulf. If you don't look at Syria, if you don't look at Eastern Mediterranean, if you don't look at Libya, all are interconnected. So if you are just looking to the Red Sea, you will finally find, like I did, just, okay, there are these economical interests, the waterways and so on, but you will not understand why each country is competing each other. It's very important to know. If you see, for example, Russia and Turkey, the relationship is very, very strange because, of course, Russia needs Turkey, for example, to get escape to the Mediterranean, because you have the Black Sea and you have a Strait of Dardanelles. It's in the end of Bosphorus. It's in the end of Turkey. So they needed to be together. But if you see in Syria now, the climate between Russia and Turkey, it's deteriorating. And you have also Libya, when Turkey and Russia are just at the opposite side. So you see, it's very, very complicated. About the lack of influence management, I totally agree about it, because there is, I will not say that there is no long-term vision. It's because the region, it's not the main priority. Like I mentioned, the main priority are outside the region. So it's just a tool. And secondly, it's about politician. We used to say that politics are dealing with regime, diplomats are dealing with nation and countries, if you understand what I mean. So the problem that that they are not competing, taking into account population, nation, needs. They are just dealing with regime, and the regime can change. And so it's why it's not about it's not a long-term management, because they are not understanding sometimes what Marc said about history, about culture, about anything like that. It's just on the short term and on the short term vision. What I would like also to mention about what's happening in the big region. So now we have a turn. We mention regularly about the Trump administration and its way of doing business in the region. And now we have Biden administration. And we have we are still in need to know what will be the future with the Biden administration, what they will be able to achieve, what will be the guidelines, because it will have a big impact on the relationship with Russia and China, of course, but also with Turkey. Turkey about the NATO, this problem, because as you know, Turkey was partner for buying the F-35 fighter jets, and now it's a little cancelled because Turkey bought also the S-400 air defense system from Russia, and so it's not compatible. But what is very good now, it's that even inside NATO, we had this a very big issue between Greece and Turkey, and they are speaking again together. They are starting from this last week. The people are speaking again. So it's maybe in resolving this and this. We don't know this also. So what will be the way to address the problem with Iran? Iran is also a big player in the region, but we don't know how the US will address the problem of JCPOA. We address about how is it just getting back to the former JCPOA? No, it's not more possible. So we discussed with Dr. Sayed about that, because the situation, it's not the one which prevailed in 2015. It's not the one which prevailed in 2018. It's totally different. So getting back to the normal JCPOA, no way. It will be JCPOA 2.0 with some influence from other partners of the region. But Saudi, it's a regional power. But how will be the relationship between MBS and Biden? Because you have the war in Yemen. You have also everything about human rights. It was told that Israel offered to Saudi, to UAE, to make some interface with Biden to decrease the pressure about human rights in that country. It will work or not, I don't know. Yes. It's what I could say about the presentation of Dr. Sayed, and also about your question. Thank you.
How about Said? Your response to Eric, or we just open? So now we just open the discussion. Oh, Said, you're muted. it, but yeah, it's okay. So I think we can
I would
now.
like to give opportunity the floor now.
Yeah, yeah, we have just remaining 15 minutes, and anyone just raise your blue hand or
I
electronic
think he
hand.
said that it will finish 12:20.
Ah, yes, yes. This time we have
I mean,
two
yeah,
topics.
20 more minutes, I think.
Yeah, 20 minutes
That's
extension.
why we
Actually,
took more time.
okay. Yes. So we have just but there's still 35 or so. So anyone that uh, do you have any questions? Uh, I try to see it. Okay. And also, we have convened a number of scholars in on our institute, and we have recently set up research, virtual virtual think tank within the University of Tokyo. It ROADS, RCAST, Open Laboratory for Emerging Strategies, and in this ROADS, you may have saw some logo, blue logo in each presentations. But so there are some scholars working on Gulf regions and the Middle East who is participating in this framework roads in this seminar. So for example, how about Dr. Saito? Can you hear me? Dr. Saito is working on
Yes, yes.
yes, Gulf
Okay.
issues. So you may have definitely you've been interested in recent normalization between
Oh,
Israel and
yeah.
countries, and also some for our understanding it's a little bit strange is such like Gulf countries are so involved in across the Arabian Peninsula and across the Red Sea into Red Sea
Mhm.
region, Horn of Africa. So you may have some comments,
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for excellent presentation. My comment and question about the food security policy of the GCC countries in
Mhm.
the Horn Africa.
Yeah.
Some GCC countries are importing a lot of food from neighboring Arab countries and African countries to make up for their own food shortage.
Mm-hmm.
Saudi Arabia and the UAE are trying to acquire large areas of farmland in the surrounding countries of the Horn of Africa, especially Sudan, Egypt, Ethiopia, and Kenya, to produce agricultural products to GCC countries. However, food export from the African countries to GCC countries have not increased as much as initially expected. My question is whether the strengthening of relations between the GCC countries and the African countries through agricultural investment is purely for their food security purpose, uh, or for the GCC countries to provide financial assistance to African countries. I don't have the appreciate answer as I am an economist. I'd like to hear your opinion from the point of view of international relations and African studies.
Yeah, there's been much talk about, next conflict will be about water, and in the way Gulf countries
Yeah.
are
Yes.
importing water from across the region. But
Yeah.
the strange thing is actually that increase of food import have not yet happened, and what's the purpose? Is it assistance, or buying influence, or buying food? Is there any comments or response answers from our respected speakers? And
yeah, if you allow me, I might bring some information about that. Definitely, there are huge investments by CCG countries, especially the United Emirates and Saudi Arabia, into Sudan or into Ethiopia. But up to now, as far as I see, these investments have mainly focused on fodder, for instance, fodder for the cows that look at Qatar. I mean, Qatar was self-sufficient during the embargo because it had imported cows in order to feed its own population, and these cows were needing fodder. So this is the kind of investment that are made nowadays, not only by GCC countries, but also other countries in Sudan along the Nile Valley, because the land is given to them for long lease, about 50 years or so, and the water is free. But it raises a number of problems. First of all, the local population is somehow kicked out of its own land in order to accommodate these investments. The water is taken from the share of Sudan, or maybe also from Egypt, from the overall disponibility, availability of water along the Nile. And then the return for these investments are not really seen neither in Ethiopia nor in Sudan. Ethiopia being a special case because it also cultivates flowers that are flown every day to Europe. I mean, most flowers that are bought in the shops in Europe come from Ethiopia. And this is through Israeli investments mainly, but also other foreign investments in Ethiopia on the highlands around the capital city. They are flown by plane every day. And it also raises conflicts with the local peasants population all over this country. So the idea of food security is a good idea. And certainly the Gulf countries need to have this food security. But the balance between, I mean, the interest is not yet properly fixed, I think. And the local government, they face an opposition from their own peasantry against these investments.
Thank you. Thank you. And Dr. Said, do you
thank
have
you. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Dr. Said, do you have any comment? Oh, you are muted. You're muted. It's okay?
No, it's okay. No. I'm fine. Yeah.
Okay.
I was just urging Marc because I think, as I thought, he has very good knowledge about that.
Okay. So do you have, is there any questions from the floor? One of my, question to all of your particular side is, you have mentioned the importance of Turkish involvement, and but still it's not, clear. Of course, central government of Somalia is supported by Turkish military. No one else can do it. But for example, in Sudan, how Turkey can exert influences to Sudan? There's a issue of Sawakin Island, but is there any strategic meaning in getting the right to use Sawakin Island? We are not, it's not clear right now. So from your point of view, for Said or maybe Eric, your defense security point of view, is there any security usability of this Sawakin Island issue?
Okay, let us first tell you two things. Number one, big difference between what I announced and what I have hidden and we analyze, right? Second, difference between tool and goal. Okay, how? what's announced when Sawakin has been visited by Turkish president, by big military officers from Turkey and Qatar, chief of staff, okay, and also Minister of Foreign Affairs for both countries. This gives you two dimensions, political and military, mainly. But what announced it that we are in Sawakin to restore the history of relations between Turkey, which is right. That's not bad. And here comes what I told you, the difference between tool and goal. It shows that the goal, which is friendly issue, that it's historical civilization of the empire, and maybe it could be seen by the other side, which is Egyptian side and the other competitors, that Ottoman Empire goal. No, it's Ottoman Empire tool, culture tool. He doesn't want Ottoman Empire. I don't think. He doesn't have even the capability. It's not workable anymore. Otherwise, it will make big distance between Europe and him, which he is really losing day by day. But it's only tool, maybe for internal issue, maybe for Islamic Party, which he is leading. People like to hear these kind of mottos. So, but why Sawakin? Why Sawakin for what is announced? But on security wise or security reason, it's maybe why not military bases to continue my series, my chain? Why here? It's the Red Sea. I have a control in Strait, in Arabian Gulf. I have a control in entrance, sharing the control, let me say, sharing the observation with my military base in Somalia, in the Horn of Africa, in Bab el-Mandab, and now I am in the Red Sea. If you see this position in the map, you will find that it's hitting from the west. One of the main three pillars of Saudi Arabia, pillars of strength, which is the religious pillar, right? Which is Mecca and Medina. It's 250 kilometers. I'm talking about Port Sudan. Sawakin is about 300. I worked in Halai and Shalati when I was captain, and I know this area very well. So it's about 200 up to 300 something kilometers from the Egyptian borders. Okay. So I'm here. It's not only that, but it's more international. Remember, interest, as I mentioned, as Eric mentioned, even Marc. So interest. This is the language which is really good understood by big major powers. It's the fact. I'm on the ground here. I'm on the ground in Libya. And here is the Red Sea, is the main passage of your navigation, trade navigation, oil navigation, military navigation, all of this kind of movement. So I think he is thinking this way. That's why Erdogan as a personality, it really is very interesting to me. Why? His personality affected his policies. He's a person, I think, my analysis, he's a person who would like always to say, I want you to need me. I would like to be in a position, all nations to need my country. I can build up my nation not with mottos. I can build up my nation with economy, with technology, with all true dimensions of national powers. And then in security and military power, I'm here, and political power as well. Diplomatic power of Turkey is more offensive, is more like supremacy, upper hand, and he is using this way. I think so.
How about Eric? How about your opinion? How Turkish influence is exerted in this region, particularly in Sudan?
Yes, I definitely subscribe to the point of view of Dr. Sayed about the way Turkey it's doing. So the only comment I can say that for Turkey now, Turkey, firstly, yes, the Red Sea, it's also from this military vital importance. It's like Russia way. To escape also the Mediterranean. The only things for Turkey, it becomes a little overstretched. you know, it's a lot of things to do at the same time when you face some economical difficulties in your own country. You have Syria, you have the Karabakh issue, you have the Libya, and so on. So it means that of course Turkey needs the help of Qatar to go further. They need the finance of Qatar. And about the localization, of course, because even if we have some talks and so on, Turkey is at odds with localization. Yes, it is just in front of Saudi, and so it's a different advantage to be there. And every right to do.
Marc,
well, if I may add a small comment. First of all, of course, Turkey and Qatar have been expelled from Suakin, and this project is dead. That was the price to pay for getting Saudi and UAE financial aid for the new regime. But at the same time, I think there was a symbolic dimension to this return to Sawakin by the Turks. That was that Sawakin was the port of embarkment of the pilgrims coming from all over the Sahel to go to Mecca. And this raises a sound for the people in Western Africa. Sawakin means something. So I agree that I don't think that Erdogan is going to reshape or rebuild the Ottoman Empire, but he uses this memory of the Ottoman Empire, which is not entirely negative in Africa or in the Red Sea. He uses for his own purpose, which is to contest the supremacy of the Saudis over the Mecca and Medina. This is also something very obvious, and that may raise some agreement in some parts of the Muslim communities all over the world, because Saudis have won the sacred sites by war in 1924. So their legitimacy to run the Hejaz may be contested by Erdogan, and it might evoke some sounds in Iran and in other countries, in far away countries, also within the Islamic world.
Thank you. And do you have any other questions? Anytime you write it down to chat box, or you raise a hand in blue in your okay, Dr. Kobayashi, Mane Kobayashi, our site. Do you remember? Oh, okay. Do you remember? Of course, from JIME. So he's working on BBR and the other issues. And so, Dr. Kobayashi, so please.
Thank you very much for your great discussion and presentation. I have a question each for Dr. Syed and Mr. Michiels. The question for Dr. Syed is that what could be the future scenario in the region, and particularly in after 3 or 5 years? So would you see the balance of power in the region while the tension is heightened by among the regional countries, or would you expect any so-called hegemonic stability? If so, which country would obtain the hegemony? And maybe the third scenario could be any conflicts or any armed crashes. So I would like to know your future prospects. And the question for Mr. Michiels is that in December of 2019, Iran, China, and Russia have conducted a joint naval exercise in Arabian Sea. So would you expect that could be repeated, or it was just one-time event? So, and also I would like to know how the European security or strategic community is seeing that that event. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Said?
Okay. Yeah, very good question. By the way, just I would like to mention that when I met Amani first time, I knew he's the youngest doctor, I mean, qualified, specialized in North of Africa. And I think still the youngest, maybe. So nice to meet you again. Okay, a very good question. Why? Because really this is the main question right now, not only in Horn of Africa and Red Sea, but also all over the regions, and even globally. So what I can say that, yes, it is that always third scenario is conflict, but I think all procedures and common strategies and strategies with new under preparation are always thinking to avoid this conflict. Because, as I said before, if USA fight China, so the big winner will be Russia. So this is very important when we have to keep in mind. And remember that the tool of the tool of the enemies right now is competition, impose influence. And the tool of even, how can I say, actors, let me say, maybe conflict, but usually by proxies. There is no, direct conflict right now between two countries and the United Nations. I don't think so. So anyway, if I come back, the main game now and the main expected scenario is according to who will be more expanding in the region, especially China or United States of America. And this, based on that, we can see the regional actors, powers or actors. Why? USA is afraid of a specific issue, that China to control, this is Parali, this is, this is what you call it, the Djibouti seaport. If they could, they have a lot of projects, inside, and maybe Eric mentioned something like that. But anyway, if they control it, this is a really big headache to the United States, and this will be the first true expansion and more domination of China in this region. USA, I think, is coming with a grand strategy, which is totally different, and will be the first priority how to confront China, how to undermine China, everywhere, including, especially in Horn of Africa. And I think they will think again, they will think more and more how to do that. China is trying to come with some different ways. Okay, let me give you an example about that. In our regions, USA and Russia used to deal with non-Arab countries in Arab issues. And I give you examples. Sochi conference, Turkey, Iran, and Russia. In Syria, no Arab country. GCPOA, all big heads, right? No other country. Europe was represented, but no Arab country, even any power of them, So China would like to approach another way. And I can remind you with the invitation which has been declared by Mr. Yi Wang, this is Minister of Foreign Affairs of China, when he said invitation for multi-dialogue between Iran and GCC. Try to find some way. This is only try to different approach. We would like to stay stability in a state of conflict. So the first scenario which I'm expecting, that increasing of ways of domaining the region. With that, even both of them, they know the rules of the game, as I mentioned before. So we'll find the regional powers and we'll find the actors with their big money will never stop. And this because, as I mentioned, the lack of management of influence, 100% will support to increase the instability, which will really may threat the movement. who is the good, I'm sorry, the instability is always good environment of two things, I believe. Number one, terrorism or piracy. Okay, instability is always, good environment for them. Number two, approach of Russia. Russia is a best player in organized chaos, especially if it's organized by him, or who can play in chaos very well. He can confront, the strategies. That's why, and it was mentioned that during our meeting, Aaron, remember a few days ago in Abu Dhabi in his embassy, with other diplomats, we mentioned something that you know very well how much China and Russia came very closer in the region. So I think China will get closer more to Russia. Why? Because Russia is the best player in chaos, which are expected by everybody in this region now, even around them. And they need this kind of maneuverability and cleverness of dealing in chaos. But here another problem will come. I don't think it will continue much, this kind of nice relations between them with one goal against one enemy or one competitor. Let me say it's mainly United States. It was mainly United States, and it was before Europe and United States, and will come back Europe and United States. But during Trump, it was mainly Trump and United States. What is the main problem? We'll meet both of these two good countries, China and Russia, that the difference of tools of influence or benefits of the region. The main tool of benefit of China is economy. The main benefit of Russia is arms sales. Arms sales means more instability. Economy needs instability. And as I told you, this instability is big devil or really big enemy to the Chinese strategy, whatever it will come, because they don't have the maneuverability, and they will have to depend on Russia, but for some extent, because a lot of arms sales is really against Chinese approach. I hope you got my point.
Thank you. And Eric, do you have some?
Yes, so about the implication of China in any naval exercise in the Arabian Sea for the future. What we have to know that China is building its navy now. It's building aircraft carriers, and meaning it is more and more, and then it's not self-made aircraft carriers. So it's one thing that so if they are expanding their navy, it's to use it. One thing, you are not building this aircraft carriers just to keep it ashore. It will be where normally China has its main interest in the Sea of China. Firstly, to the urging about going to Arabian Sea. Yes, we can expect that in the near future they will do some exercise, because it's part also of the Sea Belt Road. So if they wanted to assure there's some security, they have to show up some presence in the region. If you cannot just say the security of the waterways will be assured by US or any other country. You need to do it by yourself, or to show that you have the capability to do it. Don't forget that the presence of the military in Djibouti, the Chinese presence, it's something that is totally new comparing to the strategy of China up to now. It was the most assertive action from Xi Jinping the last year. So we can say, yes, if you have a naval base in Djibouti, if you have your economic interest in the region, like the sea and Belt Road, if you want to compete with US and other international actors, you have to show up your presence. It's just about your credibility on the long term. The question is for to do an exercise alone or with partners. It's the big question mark, because it will make a big difference. Is it with Iran? Because Iran is building China. It's helping Iran to build a new naval base in Iran with some money and so on. Why not? So yes, however, there's a lot of interest for China to do that. So it will not surprise me. I have no idea, just a precise detail that it should. Oh, it will be in within the 6 months or so, something like that. It should be. It should be if China will want to be a major player in the region. But your second question and how Europe it's looking towards China and I would say, Europe is looking. I said Europe, not your particular European country. Europe, for if you see, we have this a range of action. It's up to 6,000 kilometers. It's the scope we have from Europe. We don't go beyond. It's because of this, our inability to project forces and so on. So up to now, when we see China deploying this, any naval assets in the Sea of China, it's more a political concern of diplomatic concern and not yet a military concern we have. And so if China is coming with some forces doing some exhibition, I will call it like this in Arabian Sea, we will have a look. It will be something we will follow it. But there is no huge concern. We are more concerned about this, how China is infiltrating Europe by the economy, by the social media, by finance, and so on, and not just about.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I hope to have answered your question.
Okay. So we have another question from one of our team in Jihad. His question is to Said and also to Michiels and also to Dr. Lavergne. First question is about it's on in the chat box. Are we going to see more private military contractors activity in the region, in Red Sea, Horn Africa regions? That is one question. And to Dr. Lavergne, is grand strategies applicable in the region by any of the major international actors? Those are two questions. And so actually, finally, I have one small question. Final question from me is it's about the impact of recent GCC, reconciliation. As Said mentioned, the conflicts in the region is related to the division within GCC, at least partially. So even though it's ideological division has not been solved, but at least their national interest is now overlapping, so they try to be united in the GCC. So maybe Said, do you expect any positive result for the in the conflicts in the Yemen or in the conflict in Somalia or Somaliland? Do you have any change according to the reconciliation in GCC? So that's my final question. But there are questions from Jihad on the private military company in this region. What's your answer?
For me, first, I can say, let me answer Jihad first. if he means same like, you know, Wagner of Russian as they do in Libya, for example. So I don't think that Russia has this big capability to do that in the Horn of Africa. But anyhow, if I understand it in otherwise, which is like proxies, Houthis, and so, yeah, they will continue for sure. And as I told you, if increasing of instability, so more proxies will appear. Not more proxies, I mean more activities of proxies will appear, and even maybe somehow piracies. And remember, there are a lot of terrorist groups proscribed by several places, you know, in this region, especially in Somalia and Sudan. So maybe they could be more active with increasing of instability. Answering your question, let me say reconciliation could have a result in two ways. First one, a result of good intention. I don't think so. Okay, there is no result of good intention of reconciliation, but result of win-win negotiation. Because I believe that reconciliation is based on win-win. Why? I'm not against reconciliation, remember, but I'm describing it. I'm just trying to describe it. So I hope reconciliation with good intention even. But why I say that? When the besieging or boycotting, or as I told you, I call it boycotting, started, so 13 conditions appeared, clear points, and head of them, as I told, this is supporting Muslim Brotherhood, not having this kind of proscribed terrorist elements inside Qatar, stop supporting source of these what you call it terrorist groups, Al Jazeera, stopping Al Jazeera. But when reconciliation, which has been declared, happened, nothing mentioned about any one of the conditions. And I saw it as it's just, you know, there are a big, what you call it, fine, $5 billion for Qatar Airways, and we have to stop it and also open the borders. So Qatar main goal of reconciliation to open the borders, not to stop competition. I don't think so, because they will continue, and other side will continue, because there is no unity of economic growth. But remember, if you notice the Gulf Summit, what happened? I noticed some specific issues. Number one, as I told you, no any declaration of any condition of the 13 somehow. Number two, the two papers which have been declared with Al-Ula announcement or the result, nothing mentioned about the reconciliation. I don't know which paper big people signed. I don't know, really, I didn't see. So these only the two have been signed maybe, or other one. Third, one of the points have been mentioned by King Salman, by King Salman. He said, this is the time to go back to the unity. Unity, remember, GCC is not unity or union. And it's needed to be union. And union here, one leader with one goal, not only economic, but also military and political. Right? This is very important. I think it was number, if I'm not wrong, 32 and 51, or 52, something like that. Check in 30s and 50s. And, you know, this is a summit result. And this really gave me something related to reconciliation as well. Is it a condition, a new condition to be back? Because Oman refused that. Remember, Oman refused that, refused this unity. Only Emirates and KSA, right? Kuwait, I don't think that they wanted. And remember, many projects were stopped, and one of them has been mentioned, the other one not, that it will be back, which is the railways among the countries.
Yeah.
But the bank was not mentioned. You know, this is the one money, one currency, one central bank of GCC, it's not mentioned. So here, the result of the reconciliation of Horn of Africa and the Red Sea, it will be not based on clear, nice, good intention. I don't say they are bad people, they are very good people, but it will be based on win-win, interest, no values here. It's okay?
Okay. Eric, do you have what your answer, response?
So yes, I will first address the fact about private contractors, about Wagner, and so yes, there is a big difference between using factions, local factions in a country, like the tribes and so on, and it can be considered as mercenaries too. That may be paid, but it's not a contract you have. So we have to make a clear difference, like with SDG or maybe some tribes in Libya and so on. So this is different from the contractors, like this. We have the Wagner Group, because with Wagner Group you have a fixed contract to do something and you pay for something. There is no other local interest about the nation and so on. They will use. It depends on which country. If we are looking into UAE, it's a small country. We said yes. Comparing to the number of inhabitants with a huge armed force, because it's about 64,000, comparing to 10 million inhabitants, and inhabitants 90%. So yes, it's significant. But when you have to go outside to wage war, it's about sending your own troops and having maybe the side effect of having body bags and casualties, and you don't want to have. It was a nightmare for the politicians here for MBZ and so on in UAE when they got a lot of casualties at the beginning of the war in Yemen. So using such a group, yes, I think that it is for some particular countries they will use it. Like it seems to be the case from UAE in Libya, like you have Turkey in Libya too. So paying this kind of things. Don't forget that the Wagner Group, Russian group, has its outside Russian seats here in Abu Dhabi. It's in UAE. They have the main seats, and so it's about to do something. And so it's a contract with a firm to do something, and having not to do the side effect of just justifying any casualties. So I think that they will still use, and it's depending on which country. So UAE will definitively do. I don't think that Saudi will do, because they have maybe this huge force. It's the question. It's for the first point about reconciliation and DCC and the impact. Yes, I totally agree with what Dr. Sayed told about. It's not unity. You have still the competitions amongst the different countries. Like for the port, you have a huge competition between Abu Dhabi port and Dubai Port World inside the Emirates. But they are competing with Doha also to establish, because it's about money. So they are making competition among them here in the Gulf, but outside the Gulf too. It's one thing. Reconciliation, you spoke about this, the impact on Yemen war, about the reconciliation. I don't think there's anything about this, because the Yemen war, it's the roots are deeper, and the problem is now deeper, and it's not about DCC and so on. You have some conflict inside the Yemeni with SDC, with the government of Hadi, with the Houthis. And they established with a Riyadh agreement, they put one government Normally, it was initially scheduled to be put in place after 30 days, initially done, and it took about 13 months to put it in. It's now you have different factions inside the government, but they don't have any global and common goal. When you are forming a government with different parties, what main things to do is to have a political declaration about what to do only. Otherwise, you will have now politicians struggle inside the government, and they will not solve this. About Saudi and the implication in Yemen, I have this a big issue with this latest declaration of Trump administration about declaring the Houthis as terrorist group, because making this group terrorist. Firstly, it gave some legitimacy to Saudi being, because now they are fighting a terrorist group, but it will be very difficult to find, to negotiate a peace. It's for example, for Martin Griffiths, the UN envoy, how can he deal now with the Houthis if they are terrorists? It cannot. So I don't think that we have this, a positive outcome for the Yemen war for the next years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Oh, so how about Dr. Lavergne on any possible grand strategy applied by the major international actors? What is your response to this question? Oh, you are muted. Would you unmute?
I'm not sure I listened. I heard the question properly. Is it about the capacity of international actors to intervene? It's a very broad question. I don't know.
Yeah. The question is, mentioning the grand strategy, any grand strategy, but it's a vague, word. So how do you see, international actors and leverage or any vision for improving the situation in this region? Any actor can do. Which actor is the possible, intervening force?
At the international level, I don't see the great actors to really engage in the solving of the problems of the region. As we can notice, I mean, some problems like the embargo on Qatar has been solved by the local actors. Now the Yemeni war is going to be somehow settled, but between Yemeni partakers, with, of course, the foreign actors around trying to get a benefit from this war. But definitely in both cases, there was no positive result for those who got involved into these two crises. So what I see from the international actors, for instance, something that can be noticed that the Chinese, for instance, and not only them, but the whole Far East is getting less dependent of the Red Sea because of the opening of the Arctic sea route and other Silk roads on land through trains and roads from China to Russia. So China and Russia somehow they get involved in the area, but they have other options. They are not limited and they are opening new options. Whereas the Gulf countries themselves, they need to solve these problems because the social and economic situation in Saudi Arabia and in other countries, due to the lack of employment for the youth, lack of financial returns, and also the COVID pandemics plays a role in the weakening of the economies of the area. Dubai certainly also is somehow weakened. So the whole world is sees his means to intervene diminished also by the pandemics. This is a factor that has to be taken into account when one thinks of deployments and investments. This is perhaps not the proper time now to look forward to this future. But there, as I said before, Red Sea will remain important as a link. But some countries are opening new links to get less dependent of the Red Sea. So this should lead all actors to take all these new factors into account and adopt more positive views and actions toward the solving of the problems in the region.
Thank you very much.
I think another comment, Satoshi, if you don't mind. Yeah, I think Gihad is naive from his question. I think he's touching a point I can add for that. Yes, grand strategies could be possible, especially through Horn of Africa. Free and open Indo-Pacific strategy, but when it comes at Japan, but it comes at USA. I think Biden will have to do very quick things. As I mentioned before, he is putting China at the main priority, or he will put China at the main priority. China, and he will exploit some mistakes of China, which I can include even Russia in that. Number one, that China's strategy is based on one way, not two way. Like before Silk Road, as mentioned by Marc, that Silk Road, Silk Road has something also I would like to add, that it was two ways. And it's mentioned everywhere, everybody read that. But also it's noticed that Belt and Road is one way of economy, just to export from China to the region. Not only Horn of Africa, but all over the world, but not to receive. It's not mutual trade, right? And USA know that very well. And this, it will try to use this kind of, how can I say, weakness of approach of China. Second, they know very well this is short-term honeymoon contract between China and Russia, and they are really waiting. And I think USA, India, and Japan will be appearing in this grand strategy somehow, near or later, I don't know. But remember that one of the most important tools that China is using is time. Very speedy if I compare even with USA, India, Japan, and all other around coming from East China, from Far East or East Asia up to the other side of the world. So this is really exploit. So here the game will be like what? Grand strategy by USA, supported by its allies, maybe could be within FOIB and some others, depending on mistakes of their opponents with China and Russia, in front of the very quick movement of the Chinese, with their even short-term allies. But only another one really difference between China and its opponents, that China is building a big political infrastructure, not even economic, not only economic, political, let me call it political infrastructure, which is avoiding the American mistakes. One of the biggest American mistakes was to deal with the region as mixed region of Middle East. No, China is doing something different. It's making a political infrastructure of Arab region. And it has very good relation with one by one and organization by organization, which is Arab League, GCC, and even some others. And I'm sure that China will try to support more Arabian and Islamic organizations to deal with, which will be like stones in front of the grand strategy of USA and its allies. It should be good advantage, but American did not get used to do that. It's this kind of different organization in one area of interest.
I see, that's a very good point. And Okay, so now we have already run out of time as always. So we continue on this kind of discussion in the next seminars, and thank you everyone for joining us. Such a long discussion, and um, um, eh, we've been concentrating on the southern part of Red Sea, and it's a part of the conflicts, part of division, and maybe in the future we talk about more northern part of Red Sea region. In this region, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Sudan, we have much room for development, and I hope in the near future we can talk about it. But for the moment, Red Sea and Horn of Africa region is still a lot of uh, disputes, a lot of conflicts. But then we have a good number of security experts like you. So we've made a very good discussion today. So thank you very much for speakers and the participants, and thank you very much. And we hope we see again the next seminar. Thank you very much.
One more point, please. Thank you so much, Satoshi,
Thank
and
you.
thanks for my
Thank you
colleagues
very
for
much.
joining me.
Thank
And
you.
really, it's a very good opportunity. We will continue. We promise to do our best as usual next time. And would like really, if you don't mind, to thank my assistants, Jihad, Muhammad Amir, and Ahmed Adil, because my presentation and even source of information, which really even helped my colleagues, they were the main players preparing them. So thank you very much again, and for all attendees who attended with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.